We keep hearing about a MAGA civil war and the Republican Party splintering, but there's a key piece of this that we need to bring into focus that I think a lot of people are missing. My name is Brittany Page, and this is the Page Perspective. Things really came to a head when, just a few weeks ago, Tucker Carlson invited Nick Fuentes to sit down for a lengthy chat. And if you've been avoiding this MAGA civil war, or you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, or don't know what a Groyper is, today is the day that changes for you, because this is where the Republican Party is headed, and we need to keep our eyes on the ball. Nick Fuentes is the most prominent Nazi today. He's a racist, bigot, anti-Semite who leads the Groyper movement. Groypers are followers of Fuentes who share his worldview and abhor women's rights for LGBTQ people. They believe that white people are superior and that immigration, particularly of non-white people, is an existential threat to their ideal of a white nation. Basic Nazi stuff here equals Groypers. And you have this divide in the Republican Party right now where there's a battle for the future, and whether that future will be controlled by the more far-right movement in the Groypers or those who claim to oppose the Groypers. Now, as Fuentes sat down with Tucker, a splinter shot down the center of the GOP, with several prominent Republicans rushing to denounce the act of platforming Fuentes. Republicans like Ted Cruz, for example.
If you sit there with someone who says Adolf Hitler was very, very cool, and that their mission is to combat and defeat global Jewry, and you say nothing, then you are a coward and you are complicit in that evil.
Such forceful words from Cruz, but that also happens to be meaningless, absolutely meaningless. Why? Because Donald Trump hosted Nick Fuentes for dinner in 2022. Do these people think that we have amnesia? Ted Cruz's pick for president, the man that he voted for, dined with that same man he's calling out for having praised Hitler. Where were you in 2022, Ted? If you couldn't be moved when Trump called your wife ugly, I'm not sure why I'm expecting you to be moved when your guy hosts the Hitler lover for dinner. And we're all playing along here, pretending that it is the platforming of Nick Fuentes on Tucker's show that goes too far, when Tucker Carlson is Nick Fuentes, just a smidge taller, maybe a smidge, with a bow tie, thus more socially acceptable in his racist displays. Up until a certain point, of course. There were a few times that Tucker let his true Nazi self show, like this moment from 2018 when he told us that immigrants make our country dirtier and poorer.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
Tucker's entire career on Fox News shows us that he was the palatable Fuentes. Fuentes is now saying what he couldn't then. And let us not forget some of the text messages that played a role in Carlson's firing from Fox News, including one where he described Trump supporters jumping someone and said, quote, "It's not how white men fight." Anyone with even a passing familiarity with Carlson wasn't surprised to see proof of his white nationalist views. He promoted them daily on his show. And so this is my central point. The Republican Party has always amplified racists until they get a little too bold and raise too much alarm. And then they publicly back away and distance themselves. And this has happened many, many times, including with Donald Trump. And we're seeing it now. Tucker hosts Nick Fuentes. Some Republicans denounce and say it goes against their values. Then some, like Heritage Foundation's Kevin Roberts, lean in and say, actually, this is fine. And that's where we are now. The Republican Party has some choices to make. Will they fully lean into where they're headed in their full Nazification? Or are they going to continue to say with their words that they denounce the racist bile in their party while continuing to support, vote for, and amplify the people who are doing their best to ensure racism is the center of the party? Or, and this is the crucial third option, are they actually going to rid themselves of this toxicity and root it out. And if you're watching this, like this crazy leftist acting like the Republican Party is about to be overtaken by people who openly share their love of Hitler, you don't need to take it from me. Take it from Lindsey Graham, Republican senator from South Carolina.
But I just want to make it really clear, I'm in the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party.
Oh boy. Of course, Lindsey proclaiming that he's the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party naturally, logically implies that there's a Hitler is great wing of the Republican Party. And of course, we already know that. We've already established that. The question is now, where is this headed? During this video, we're going to get to some history on the mess in the Republican Party, and we're even going to get to some lore from my childhood. This is a little preview of that. But first, JD Vance. Which wing of the party is JD Vance in, and why isn't he being clear about it? Well, I would argue that by not being clear about it, he's being clear about it. Or as it was stated in a recent podcast between Ezra Klein and John Gans, JD is Groyper adjacent. He can't even pretend to give us a post-Tucker full-throated denunciation of Nick Fuentes. What do we think he's doing in private? There are two moments in particular from JD Vance's recent interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News that stand out to me on this. The context for this first one is Elon Musk's AI, Grok. And I want to remind you all that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, his first order of business was ensuring that Nick Fuentes was put back on the platform after having previously been banned. Elon has, of course, leaned into every far-right racist talking point you can imagine, from his Nazi salute to his rantings about immigration and birth rates and support for Germany's far-right AfD party. And he also created the Nazi AI that is Grok. And would you be surprised to learn that JD is a big fan?
Back to the home building part. It's interesting you brought it up. Are you as obsessed with AI as I am?
I am.
Okay, I don't know. I'm a Grok guy.
Okay. Me too. I'm a Grok guy.
You're a Grok guy. Okay. Elon, I think it's the best.
I think it's the best. It's also the least woke. I'm always asking myself, when if I ask an AI a question, is it going to give me an objective
answer? If the Vice President puts it in extreme mode.
Answer?
Have you put it in extreme mode just for kicks and giggles? It's a little. Well, if you want,
I have not, Sean. I don't want the media to attack
If you want to
me.
know.
If I wasn't already vehemently anti-AI, that clip would have sent me right over the edge. I'm telling you, watching these two corrupt, contemptible bigots wax poetic about AI, specifically Elon Musk's Nazi AI, is nothing short of nauseating. I'm a Grok guy, JD says. It's the least woke, he says. And because I'm sick of the way that these things get sanitized, let's just speak in plain terms about what JD Vance is saying here. He's saying, I love Mecha Hitler. JD Vance says Mecha Hitler is not woke. The Vice President of the United States says Mecha Hitler says exactly what I think about race. Mecha Hitler is, of course, the name that Grok gave itself when it was spewing racist conspiracy theories after, by the way, Elon Musk said that he had significantly improved Grok. What were those significant improvements exactly? Well, if you ask JD, he appreciated, apparently, how Grok specifically started referencing Adolf Hitler as the person who could solve, quote, the Jewish problem, when asked by a Nazi who runs Gab, another Nazi website, who also was loving Grok's significant improvements and started asking Grok questions about the, quote, Jewish problem. And then, of course, we should speak in plain terms about JD loving Grok related to the violent abuse that Grok promotes. JD apparently prefers his AI coach unhinged people on how to commit break-ins and rapes of leftist activists, which is, of course, another thing that happened on Elon Musk's Nazi website with JD's favorite AI, Grok. So sure, you can take this as a cute little clip of two idiots trying to cozy up to the world's richest man, or you can take it for what it is. Two men promoting Elon's Nazi AI and laughing about its racist and violent meditations. Now, there's a lot that I could talk about in this interview, but I want to talk about another clip that got less attention. And I want to tie all of this to a broader conversation about the divide in the Republican Party right now. The demonization and abuse of immigrants is at the heart of a lot of this racism. Those in the far right, Groyper, or as Lindsey Graham would say, Hitler-loving wing of the Republican Party, they believe immigration will cause white genocide, that racial integration, interracial marriage, the presence of non-white people will cause the white race to die out. And so much of their emotional volatility can be tied to this fear because of their belief in this conspiracy theory. Now, I said the Groyper wing of the GOP holds this position, but Donald Trump himself has leaned into white genocide arguments. So again, getting back to my central point, what really is the difference here when the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party does nothing to rein in the Hitler lovers in the Republican Party? And this next clip is a good example. JD Vance is eager to lean into the demonization of immigrants in order to try to distract you from the billionaires who are looting our government and creating policies that keep the working class down, telling you that the real problem is the immigrants coming here desperate for an opportunity for a better life.
A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who are taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough new houses to begin with, even for the population that we had.
Now, I know this isn't the point, but is it just me, or is JD's L'Oreal True Match Foundation not offering him a true match? They must have recently released an exclusive Lorax line, or he's just trying to make himself in Trump's image. But how vile and low and stupid and also so very wrong this playing footsie with Groypers man is. It's just flat out wrong that immigrants are the cause of the housing affordability crisis in this country. First, he says 30 million undocumented immigrants. That's a lie. Data show the number of undocumented immigrants reached a record 14 million in 2023. But this administration loves to fearmonger about the number of people crossing the border, so I guess he took this number and said, let's double it. Experts, including researchers from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, highlight two main factors driving our housing affordability crisis. Number one, incomes not keeping up with housing costs. Two, the severe shortage of homes, affordable and available to households with the lowest incomes. It is far easier to demonize a group of people JD Vance already hates than it is to challenge the billionaire class pulling the strings. The billionaire class made up of, the 10 richest people in America who grew their wealth $698 billion in the past year, where a new report from Oxfam America warns it is Donald Trump's policies that threaten to further explode inequality in this country. Gutting programs that would solve homelessness, address housing affordability, offer solutions for those on the precipice of financial ruin. Gutting those programs, that has been the priority of this administration. Billions of dollars to terrorize immigrant communities instead of helping those on the edge. But what do we expect from the guy cozying up to the Groypers, signaling his disgust with immigrants, and even going so far as to throw his non-Christian wife under the bus at a recent rally in support of Charlie Kirk?
Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way.
Now, all of this should be seen as part of a larger pattern. JD Vance sees where things are headed, and he's being strategic in who he chooses to signal allyship with, and that's the Groypers. And he knows what he's doing, and we know what he's doing, and we also know that he knows better because he once compared Donald Trump to Hitler, and then he became Hitler's vice president. So this has been in motion for a while, but what is this predicated on? This little dance with the far right explicit wing of racism in the Republican Party, this has been going on for a long time. Before the Tucker Carlsons and the Nick Fuentes, it was Pat Buchanan. Bringing us back to my childhood lore, there I am pictured with Pat Buchanan, the only presidential candidate I remember my parents supporting in my youth. And why? because he was explicitly racist. That was actually the reason. This splintering we're seeing now, it's like deja vu given what happened in the 90s, when a familiar face was making the rounds denouncing the rise of Pat Buchanan.
For that. Now, how about Pat Buchanan? What do you think of that? Now, he seems to be the guy you'd have to battle.
Well, that's true. He's anti-Semitic. He's anti-black. He obviously has been having a love affair with Adolf Hitler in some form, and I just can't imagine this guy.
Wait, I don't want you to hold back. Give me how you feel now. I mean, these coy answers.
I can't imagine, that Pat is going to be very seriously taken as a candidate.
He's anti-Semitic. He's anti-black. He's having a love affair with Adolf Hitler. He can't imagine Pat would be taken seriously as a presidential candidate because of it. This was in 1999, and this wasn't a one-off. Here he is in 1999 on Meet the Press.
Look, he's a Hitler lover. I guess he's an anti-Semite. He doesn't like the blacks. He doesn't like the gays. It's just incredible that anybody could embrace this guy. And maybe he'll get 4 or 5% of the vote, and it'll be a really staunch, right, wacko vote. I'm not even sure if it's right. It's just a wacko vote. And I just can't imagine that anybody can take him seriously.
But what was Donald Trump saying about Pat Buchanan on the campaign trail in 2023?
There was a man, Pat Buchanan, a good guy, conservative guy. And, it's not that Pat Buchanan. Look at that. Good guy. Wow. Young people, they know him.
Good guy, he says. The same guy who's anti-Semitic, anti-black, and a Hitler lover. How many times are we going to let this happen? Donald Trump was writing op-eds about how dangerous Pat Buchanan was, only to then gleefully praise him and pivot to running a campaign that was straight out of Pat Buchanan's playbook and campaigns for president. I'm obviously not the first to draw up comparisons between Pat Buchanan and Donald Trump, especially given Pat Buchanan's early embrace of Make America First Again and Trump's Make America Great Again, and their shared love of embracing the racist in the base. But what I think is important here is that we stop letting these people off the hook. Trump knew who and what Buchanan was. And at the time, being such an outspoken racist was more of a liability than a benefit. And so while Buchanan was a liability, Trump went after him, only to later embrace him when it was less risky to do so. JD Vance is learning from this playbook. He knows who and what Trump is, fundamentally a racist who embraces and promotes racist ideas because they're popular with the base. That's why he privately called Donald Trump America's Hitler and spoke of the danger of him as president, only to get a whiff of that sweet, sweet power and cave like the spineless, eye-lined coward that he is. And now he sees a way to grow his power by giving a wink and a nod to the Groypers without explicitly coming out and going as far as Fuentes does. He does what so many other Republican leaders do: make their racism palatable, but not too offensive, lest the populace clue in to something too direct. He knows, like Lindsey Graham knows, that there's a Hitler-loving wing of the Republican Party, and he's more than happy to sell his soul to continue to rise within the ranks of it. JD sees the future of the Republican Party led by Groypers, and he isn't about to give up his chance to have a seat at the table. Like Trump, who ultimately adopted the same explicitly racist platform of Pat Buchanan, dining with Nick Fuentes and complaining about white genocide, JD Vance is prepared to do the same. So this is dangerous, in part because many of the mainstream media outlets, they're refusing to call this for what it is. I can't tell you how many times I've watched various segments from CNN to CBS to NBC covering the Carlson-Fuentes interview and the MAGA Civil War, where they never once mentioned that Donald Trump dined with Fuentes. They passed this off as a new divide with Fuentes as this unique Nazi occupying space on the right, rather than the most prominent Nazi who was called for a seat at the table at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump just 3 years ago. We can't keep letting this happen. These people know what they're doing. And we know they know what they're doing because they said it themselves. They tell us prominent figures are allied with racists, and then they go on to later ally themselves with those same racists, shifting the Overton window ever so slightly further toward explicit racism, toward the Groypers. Watch as JD Vance gets more bold in the face of a Republican Party that continues to sit back and let the racists take over with meek whispers of disapproval. So here's what I would ask if you're still with me after what ended up being a very long video. Share this with someone who hasn't yet made the connections between this long line of racist signaling that has brought us to a place where the Groypers are at risk of fully taking over the Republican Party. Many of those with the most power in the party evidently see this as inevitable. Do the supporters of the party feel the same? I'd love to hear from you on this. Please share your thoughts in the comments below or call and leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail at 202-656-1509 or send an email to info@thepageperspective.com. You can always support my work by becoming a channel member just by clicking the join button below for as little as $1.99 a month, or you can go to patreon.com/idoubtitpodcast. Please follow me on social media. I'm at Brittany Page on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Take care, and I'll see you next time.